I'm getting a lot of questions, folks, in the past week about student loans, and it concerns me. When I see a volume of questions building, I know something's going on. Here's why. When I see a lot of phone calls coming in about debt collectors starting to ramp up things, or I hear, Carmen, I'm getting foreclosed upon, I know it's kind of a sway in what I see the future holding. Here I'm getting a lot of questions about student loans. How can I repay them? What can I do? Forbearance, deferment. What can I do to protect myself? Am I going to have pay interest rates while I'm in bankruptcy? I mean, there's a lot of questions coming from a lot of different angles, and it's almost impossible. You could really focus a whole show on just student loans. Problem is, they're getting bigger. In a recession, a lot of people decide, hey, I'm going to go back to school, I'm going to up my skills, I'm going to get a better job, this is how I'm going to do it. I think that's fantastic. The problem I see is student loans back in October 2007, way back when Congress changed the laws, not this time in 2007, but before that, back in 1985, I believe, they said, all right, we're going to make student loans, or the majority of student loans, non-dischargeable. Now, everybody's in the student loan game knowing, hey, guess what, Mr. Student, I'm going to give you a student loan, but you're not going to be able to walk away from it. You're going to have to pay me no matter what. And I'm going to charge you interest, and I'm going to charge you penalties. I'm going to get all the benefits of this student loan debt, and I'm going to hoist it on you. You got the education, now you go out and you pay me back. I have nothing wrong with somebody getting an education. I have nothing wrong with paying student loans back, as long as it's a fair interest rate and they're willing to work with people. Problem I see is now we've got student loan debt in this country which exceeds credit card debt. That scares the living out of me. And the reason why is if you have a sluggish economy that's not creating jobs, not creating better paying jobs, all the education in the world is going to be useless. You hear about people who have a $100,000 education and can't get a $40,000 a year job to meet minimum living standards so that they can try to start repaying the student loan debt. I see people all the time with outrageous student loan debt, wonderful people, great education, trying to get a job in their field, they can't get a job. I understand that. It's a tough place to be because now you've got an obligation to pay these student loans back, yet no ability to. And that's a tough place to be for a lot of people, a lot of men, a lot of women who are struggling to get by, make ends meet. They have children, they've got student loan debt. It's scary, it really is. So what happens with student loans? Let me just give you the rundown of how student loans work in bankruptcy. If you file Chapter 7, it's really not a big deal. You can get rid of all the other debt that's dischargeable, but student loan debt is non-dischargeable, which means that you can go through a Chapter 7, get a discharge, walk away from the house, walk away from a car if you want, walk away from all the credit card debt, all the personal loans, everything. Afterwards, after you get your discharge, you're going to have to cut a deal with the student loan people to start repaying that debt. In Chapter 13, it works a little bit differently. And it all depends on how much you're going to pay back to your other creditors because you are eligible to treat your student loans differently in a bankruptcy. We had one case where we were paying back 100% to our unsecured creditors, but we wanted to keep the student loans outside of the bankruptcy because we had a 2% deal on them. So my client had the ability to pay back some debts in bankruptcy and 2% on their student loans going forward. The bankruptcy trustee wanted those student loan debts paid inside the plan. And we had to argue to the judge why. We have to pay the trustee a 10% premium to pay the student loan payments. If I keep them outside, I can pay them off at 2% interest. So why would I pay a 10% premium to pay them through here when the clients have the benefit of paying them here? Nobody's getting hurt in the bankruptcy. Why lump these in when it doesn't make financial sense? And the judge saw it our way. He said, yeah, you're right. This doesn't make financial sense. Why would we hoist this extra burden onto these individuals in bankruptcy when they have the ability to pay it outside on a plan at 2% interest? I mean, if you can get that deal, 2% interest, fantastic. I like that deal. But other times we have to put some of it into the plan, and here's why. Let's say, for example, you got $100,000 in student loan debt and $100,000 of credit card debt, and we're going to pay back a portion of that debt. We're going to pay back 10% over the life of the plan. That means every dollar you send to the trustee, 50 cents is going to credit cards. Well, take the trustee's percentage off. Just hear me out on this one. 50% goes to the credit card companies and 50 cents of every dollar is going to student loans. So over the life of the plan, you're going to pay back $20,000, $10,000 is going to go to credit cards, and $10,000 is going to go to student loans. Knowing at the end of the case, you're still going to have that student loan debt, whatever wasn't paid through the bankruptcy, there. So my view is in that case, I would want as much of the student loan debt inside the bankruptcy as possible so that the maximum value of your money, or the majority of your money, is going to the student loan companies. In other words, I would rather have 50 cents on the dollar going to student loan companies than 0 cents on the dollar going to student loan companies, knowing at the end of the case, I've got to pay that creditor back. So in other words, we can manipulate the system to maximize the return to the student loan people. That makes sense for my client. In other words, our job is to help you get out of this thing as quickly as possible. The other creditors, once they're discharged, they're gone. Then I want all resources going to pay the student loan people back. So that's a really big concern. And again, we could talk about student loans forever. The best way to do it, go to a state school. I wish I could have done that. I had no idea when I was in law school and when I got my master's of law how I was going to pay this stuff back. It's scary out there for a lot of young professionals coming out of law school who may have used student loans in college and who may have used student loans to get through law school, because it is an expensive proposition. Great education, but you're going to pay for it. And you've got to be willing to bust your butt to make sure you could pay for those things later and have a family and buy a house and buy a car and all these other things that life throws at you. That's what we were talking about at the beginning of the show, the emergency fund. You got to protect yourself.